Hey guys, I'm back. So, recently I've been bandwagoning off of the World Cup, okay? I mean, let's be honest, like, it's the whole world is involved, everybody's watching, it's a big deal. The whole world, I teach geography, world, geography, they go hand in hand. I took on the opportunity, okay? Exploit, I admit it, okay? But here's the deal, like, I'm actually really liking it. It's crazy. Like, I'm not even a huge soccer guy, but I just watched the most amazing match ever. It was insane, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys watched it too. It was the Cabo Verde versus Argentina match. For those you don't know, Cabo Verde is like this underdog beloved team in all of the World Cup, and they made Argentina scared. This is their first World Cup, and in their debut, they shocked the whole world. Half of the people didn't even know where Cabo Verde was. Their goalie is basically the hero of the entire show. He's this 40-year-old guy. He used to be an electrician. His name is Vozinha. He's called Vozinha. Everybody loves him. He blocked so many shots. Messi had like a perfect range goal kick, and he blocked it. And then he blocked another one from Messi. And then he blocked another and another and another. This guy is insane. Oh my God, he stopped it. He stopped it from Messi. Look at this. Vozinha blocked another one. Vozinha is such an MVP. Oh my God. Messi had a goal kick within perfect range. Look at this. Look at this. And then, look at that. Vozinha blocked it! Oh my God, Vozinha is the best! Vozinha, I vote for him to be president of the world. This guy is insane, like, ooh! Anyway, and then finally Argentina scored at the last minute, the third goal, and then blah, blah, blah. Everybody was so disappointed. It was the best match ever. So why am I saying this? Because even though Cabo Verde lost the match, I don't know if they really understood the absolute gravity of how they kind of inadvertently opened the biggest possible door. Not just for their team, but for the entire nation of Cabo Verde. Immediately after people started realizing this small team was doing so well, people were frantically researching and typing in Cabo Verde. Like, what is this place? What is Cabo Verde? Oh my God, it's beautiful. Oh, how can I go there for vacation? The internet was blowing up with Cabo Verde searches. And then when they continue their research, they start looking like, oh, who are the Cabo Verdean people? What are they? What language do they speak? What is their culture? Blah, blah, blah. And they start to see the image of what Cabo Verdean people and the country is like. And then they start to get a little confused. They're like, these Cabo Verdean people, they look kind of unique. Like they're kind of black, but they're like light-skinned black, or like, is that the ancient native Cabo Verdean people? Or like, who are these people? When I made my Cabo Verde episode like 10 years ago, my God, it's been a long time. But yeah, I remember distinctly thinking, this place is so unique. Not just because of like the landscape or whatever, but because of the way how the demographic was built up on Cabo Verde. Because this country is one of the very few places on Earth that actually did not have an ancient native indigenous population. Everybody was sort of brought in contemporary times. And the entire population of Cabo Verde has pretty much been contemporarily manufactured after only a few centuries. And then that kind of brought me down a rabbit hole. How many other places are there like that in the world? Let's have a Geogra talk. Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbs, and oh my goodness, qu'est-ce que c'est chose que je tiens? This is a Geography Now mug, of which it's fourth you can get at geographynow.com. Check out the website. We got t-shirts, we got sweaters, we got drawstring bags, and of course we have mugs. Last time I checked, they totally work. And as I always say, it is not selling out if it's your brand. So, this world has continents, and if you observe these continents, you will notice that in almost every single corner of these major land masses, you can find evidence of people inhabiting it, usually dating at least back to the Neolithic era. In this world, it's very hard to find a place that has never seen humans, and it wasn't until just a few centuries ago that the very last places on Earth were discovered that had no human contact ever. What are these areas? Well, before I list it out and tell you, first we have to understand what makes a place attractive to people to inhabit and live in. Well, number one rule, you need water. Water is pretty much what sustains all life in this world. Without it, you're not going to last very long, which is why almost every major city and settlement and area that people live in to this day have some kind of access to water, whether it's close to a water body or it's a canal that feeds them. Either way, you need water. Some of the most famous isolated areas that have seen almost no human contact in this world that are on the continents right now include places like the Rub al-Khali, or Empty Corridor Desert within the Arabian Peninsula, the Taklamakan Desert in China, the Nullarbor Plain and the Great Victoria Desert in Australia, the Changtang region of the Tibetan Plateau, parts of the Namib Desert, the Qatra Depression in Egypt, the Atacama Desert in South America, and the Sistan Basin, mostly in what is now southern Afghanistan. If you zoom into these isolated areas, you will see almost no settlements and no towns, nobody, because they either don't have water or they just don't have pretty much anything suitable for habitation. Also, I forgot to mention the inland ice sheet of Greenland never had any permanent human inhabitation. Very likely, maybe some Inuit peoples passed through it, but they never settled anything because why would they? It's just a big ice sheet. Like, yeah, maybe they could have water, but like there's no resources there. It's just one big piece of ice. That being said, the vast majority of places in this world that have never had any human history on them prior to being discovered by whoever, all of them typically tend to be islands. Why? Because although humans throughout history have been able to create basic watercraft to traverse certain bodies of water to get to certain islands, not all islands are easy to access, and the ocean is deep and crazy and scary. Now imagine trying to cross it with a log canoe. Not easy. So to this day, there are certain islands that were discovered in more contemporary times that did not have any evidence of human interaction throughout all of history. Crazy. Like no human has ever stepped on them. And then there are some islands where there was evidence of possible inhabitation from people, but they were either abandoned or the people died out. Nobody knows exactly where the people went or how they disappeared, but there's evidence showing that people inhabited the areas before they either left or died out or something. And to this day, there are 4 countries, like actual fully sovereign countries, that never had an ancient indigenous population. Upon discovery, they were completely uninhabited. They only had animals on them, but not humans. No human had ever stepped foot on these islands. Some of them, they were known of and discovered by people passing through, but they didn't decide to settle or set up anything on these islands. Those 4 countries are Cabo Verde, Sao Tome and Principe, Mauritius, and Seychelles. Now, if you look at Cabo Verde and Sao Tome and Principe, the Portuguese Lusophone-speaking countries of West Africa, the insular island countries, you'll realize they have a very creolized genetic admixture between mostly European and West African peoples, as the Portuguese were the first ones to settle, and then they brought in West African peoples, mostly as slaves. They intermixed. They are basically a whole country of biracial peoples, and it started that way just a few centuries ago when Portugal came in. From there, Sao Tome and Principe is pretty much the same story. However, they have a little bit more of a West African genetic admixture to them. For Seychelles and Mauritius, it's a little different. They had so much back and forth between the British and the French until finally the British eventually took over. But at some point, a lot of people from South Asia were also brought in, mostly from India and Malaysia. And then they also had East Africans that came in, Arabs that came in. So it's like a lot of people in these islands also have a genetic admixture between them, between all 3 continents of the people that had interaction within these islands. From there, pretty much all the other islands in these areas that surround them that are, attached to the countries also have the same story. For example, you have St. Brandon, Agaleda, Reunion Island. Keep in mind though, many documents show that Arab traders claim to have passed by these islands and have seen them and documented them in their maps, but for whatever reason, they decided not to inhabit and settle these islands. They just took note of them and then passed by. From there, we go back to the Atlantic and then we reach the territory islands that belong to other countries that also have the exact same story. So for example, the Azores and Madeira Islands that are overseas territories of Portugal, same story. Prior to discovery, they had no human inhabitation. The biggest difference though is that these island areas kind of ended up being overseas territories to Portugal that they wanted to hold on to, whereas Cabo Verde and Sao Tome and Principe gained their own independence and became their own countries. So more Portuguese people actually decided to settle these islands and it became predominantly Portuguese, which is why they kind of decided to stick with Portugal as opposed to vying for their own independence. Keep in mind, these Atlantic islands are known as Macaronesia and they include the Canary Islands. The Canary Islands though is not an example. They did have a native indigenous population prior to Spanish settlement. They were known as the Guanches and they are related to the native indigenous Berber Amazigh peoples of North Africa. But the Azores, Madeira, Cabo Verde Islands, Nobody. And then you go to the other parts of the Atlantic and it's the same story. The various UK overseas territory Atlantic island territories such as Tristan da Cunha, St. Helena, Ascension, and the Falkland Islands. And in the Caribbean, you also have Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. Yeah, the Cayman Islands. That's kind of shocking because, like, the Caribbean, like the Carib, the Arawak, the Taino peoples, they pretty much hopped around to every Caribbean island and inhabited it, and they just, like, went all over the place, even to, like, Jamaica or whatever. But I guess for whatever reason, they just looked at the Cayman Islands and they're like, nah, we're good. We don't need to. Like, they probably passed by it and saw it, but they, for whatever reason, they decided not to settle it. Probably because they were like, why bother when we have, like, the big Greater Antilles Islands with all the resources and everything? Like, what's the point when we have this big ass, island? I get it, but still, it's like, yeah, nobody inhabited that one, Cayman Islands, and now it's like the world's craziest tax haven. But anyway, that's just besides the point. Anyway, if you go far up north to the Atlantic, you have Svalbard, Jan Mayen, Franz Josef Land, and it was discovered by the Austro-Hungarians, which is why it has like the most Austro-Hungarian name ever, even though it's part of Russia. It doesn't have a Russian name. Anyway. And then you also have various Arctic islands belonging to either Russia or Canada. Some say there is evidence of human inhabitation on Wrangel Island, where they found like that preserved frozen mammoth baby, woolly mammoth baby thing. There is some evidence that way long ago in like Neolithic times, there was probably people living on that island, but still in contemporary times, there was nobody. But many of the various Arctic islands in Russia and Canada had no human inhabitation evidence showing until they were discovered by people. From there, then we go to the Southern Sea or the Antarctic Sea, and it's no shocker, pretty much every one of those small little frozen islands never had human inhabitation as well. Islands such as Kerguelen Island, Bouvet, Crozet, Prince Edward Island, Heard and McDonald, Amsterdam, Campbell, Bounty, the Antipodes, South Georgia, and the South Sandwich Islands, prior to the first documented discoveries of them, did not have any humans. Not surprised, it is way too damn cold, nobody could survive there. Why would you want to live there? It's just one big frozen glacier island. You will die within seconds. Obviously, nobody lived there. Now, there are some islands that, upon documented discovery, did show signs of prior inhabitation, whether it be like artifacts that were left behind and discovered on the islands or whatever, like some kind of clue that people were living there before, whatever. There are some islands that fall within that category, but when they were settled, they were not inhabited and the islands were empty of people. And to this day, we don't know exactly why the previous inhabitants either disappeared, maybe they died out, or maybe they left that island for another island because it didn't have enough resources or whatever. But there are quite a few of these islands in the world. Out of all the islands I'm about to list, most of them were possibly inhabited by either Polynesian or Micronesian or some kind of Oceania type of peoples in the Pacific. They are Pitcairn Island, Wake Atoll, various islands in the Line Island chain of Kiribati, Norfolk Island, Auckland Island, Kermadec Island, the Leeward Hawaiian Islands, as well as Bonin Island or Ogasawara Island in what is now Japan. The Ogasawara Islands are very strange. They have a really weird backstory. First of all, they are considered the southernmost part of Tokyo. Like, they're actually incorporated within like Tokyo City proper, even though they're like hundreds of kilometers away in the ocean, not touching the city. It's weird. But also, it's like prior to all that, the Japanese they weren't even the first ones to like step on there. It was actually the Europeans. And then like after the Europeans, it fell under the sovereignty of Japan while the Europeans were still living there. And it's like now there's like this weird Japanese European Creole culture and language that they speak on these islands. It's so strange. Anyway, it's kind of crazy. Can you imagine being a person way back centuries before all of this technology, and you get in a wooden boat craft of some sort and then encroach upon this new place that nobody had ever stepped on? You are the literal first person to step on that island. Can you imagine how that felt for people? That's like the whole story of the Polynesians, by the way. But can you imagine just discovering a new place nobody had ever seen before? There's like a sort of like invigorating enchantment to that, It's crazy. And now we're like going to the moon and trying to explore space, like being the first people to step on an area that nobody has ever stepped on before. That's, we are quite a species, aren't we? And with all of that being done and said, obviously the largest landmass that had never had any human inhabitation prior to documented discovery would be the entire continent of Antarctica. Obviously, Antarctica is the largest and the last continent to have been discovered and stepped upon by humans. So there you go. By the way, guys, if I missed anything, write it in the comments. I think I got most of them. Write it in the comments. If I missed anything, please correct me if I got anything wrong, but I think I got most of it right. I think I got like at least 93% of it right in this video. Whatever. Anyway, before we end, just want to say a huge thank you to MyHeritage for sponsoring this video. I don't know if you guys remember, but a while back, I did a DNA test with MyHeritage. MyHeritage is one of the top DNA test companies for people that are interested in finding more about their genetic and ethnic makeup. They have a privacy policy that is committed to never selling out or licensing your genetic data. They give an ethnicity estimate based off of 43 supported ethnicities across 2,100 geographic regions. On the website, you can see your actual DNA test results on a cool spinning globe animation. You can see DNA matches with other people, whether they are your direct family members or potentially new family members you didn't even know you had. You can even communicate with them via the internal messaging system. There's even a cool ancient origins and traits feature you can click on to explore more about your heritage. Go to the checkout page and use the code GN19 for a discount for your MyHeritage kit to be sent to you. Instructions will be included so you can get the ball rolling. And if you're interested, use this QR code to go there, or you can go to the link in the description of this video, see what you're made up of at myheritage.com. Thanks, MyHeritage. Stay cool, stay tuned.